Welcome to the Horizon Business Innovation Podcast, brought to you by the producers of the Innovation Leadership Summit 2017. This is part 2 of the Horizon Business Innovation Podcast on technology leadership, search and recruitment, with me, Mark Chillingworth, editor of Horizon Business Innovation. Last week in part 1, our guests, Kersty Bletso of BIE, Pat Lynes of Sullivan Stanley and Stacey of SA, described the changing of the guard in CTO and CIO search. In this second part of that discussion, Pat, Kersty and Ross describe the issues of body shopping and whether 2017 is a good year for you to search out a new role. How much is it a challenge for you not to just move the same set of clear winners all the time, which is a criticism some people level at the sector?
Yeah, I think that's a criticism that I quite often make, and I describe it as the old boys network, I think, a little bit. I think, mention no names, but I think there are certain headhunters who have just moved around the community of their chums, into different roles over a kind of 20-year period, and they've had huge success from that, and that's fine. But I think our role, as we've all talked about during this, I see search personally as people are engaging me to find the best possible person, who's available and interested in the market over the time period that you've got. And in order to do that, you've got to have an impartial assessment process and a rigid methodology, I think. But as Kersty and Pat both said, earlier in this conversation, you've just got to do that double quick time now. And I think that's the difference. But it's not about just moving clear winners all the time. It's not for me, definitely.
No, and definitely, I think. Certainly over the last 4 or 5 years, it's about having that gender balance and that diversity on your shortlists as well. So you can't just keep passing around the old boys network, because actually you want bright, engaging young women coming through, or just women full stop, and you want to have an ethnic diversity as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly important. And we talk about it a lot, and there's so much talk about it within the industry. And actually it's us on the coalface who can sit there and make those decisions. So I actively go and try and get a diverse pool of people rather than the standard kind of middle-aged white gentleman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You said it. It's out there now.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll take it back.
I agree with Kersty. I mean, network building is a passion of mine. So, I never bet on what's worked for me before. I'm always looking to replenish.
And we've talked about a changing of the guard. Is your role of search being disrupted, particularly by digital at all, Kersty?
I think everybody's always looking to become the Uber of recruitment, and I think there will always be some roles that you can, not within technology, but I think potentially kind of if you're looking for first, second line support, potentially something like that. But I think as soon as you get into the leadership roles, it's always that personal element to it. And I'd like to think the three of us sat around here are doing the disrupting of the industry, to be fair.
Ross, are you the disruptor or the disrupted?
Yeah, both, I think, if I was honest. I think digital has disrupted the recruitment industry in some senses, and Pat touched on this earlier, because it's given a rise to internal recruitment functions, internal talent functions, who are now or consider themselves to be doing executive search, for the recruitment business and for the business they work for. So I think that's a change. I think the reality is that just because you now have LinkedIn, and we'll all remember a time when LinkedIn didn't exist, and I think then search or recruitment actually was an art form. But just because you have access to LinkedIn doesn't mean that you've got access to those people. And to the point we keep coming back to, you don't have the relationship, to engage with that person, but to really understand them, as an individual, much more than just an hour's process. So I think, it has been disrupted. I think disruption out there now is this is becoming more and more personable and more people-led every day.
And Pat, are you seeing a disruption?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, I have to admit what I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, which gave me the impetus to go away and start something afresh, which in my mind is a challenger brand. So what I've seen is in a lot of organisations where they are looking to build internal search functions, they are looking to build internal contingent perm functions. I think the contingent perm market is being eaten away kind of daily at the moment. I agree with Kersty. I think the leadership transformational board layer, people want a personalised service, so it's just, you just can't automate that in my view. But I do see organisations trying to hire the likes of Kersty to have as an internal kind of search person. You know, I think yeah. I mean, it is very much.
Yeah, and you three have all, you know, begun your new roles in sort of recent-ish times. With the candidates as well, are they looking for a differentiated service, and are they coming to you? You know, obviously we've stressed that they're part of your network, you're part of their networks. Is there a loyalty and a quality of service that they're just used to and that they're looking for from you guys, Kersty?
I think so, because you know, they've invested as much time in us as we have in them. But it was interesting, over the summer I was talking to one of the CIOs in my community, and he was saying when he was looking for a role 5-6 years ago, it would have been if you want a CIO job, you go to the Shrek consultancies, and he just said now the tail on the snake is so long, and because so many people have broken out from the big consultancies and the next tier down to create these boutique firms where you want to be disruptive, where actually you want to have that personal touch. It's not just about a process, it's not just about ticking a box. That now you have to go and actually engage with quite a lot of people. I know certainly the way that BIE works and the way that I work is I will refer across to people that I know, and it's like I don't have something, but actually go speak to Pat, go speak to Ross, and actually I know they've got something. So there's a bit more openness amongst the boutique search firms now as well, where we're happy to share candidates, because most of us will all know them, and it's good to know what everyone else has got, so actually you can fire it across, and that gives you, that's helping your community. It's not just about what's in it for me, what fee am I going to get, it's like how can I help you get the job that you want.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think sometimes CIOs or IT leads I'm talking to find it surprising, but if I know that one of my competitors has a really interesting CIO role, I'm going to tell them, because as Kersty says, I think we've got to be able to add more value these days than just I've got a job that's right for you now. And I know a topic that comes up all the time for me when I'm talking to CIOs is think about personal branding, and you'll understand this really well, Mark, from your CIO 100 that you created. But there's some hugely talented CIOs and technology leaders out there who don't brand themselves particularly well, and that's something they all want to understand. How can they do that better? So I actually work quite closely with them to introduce them to people like you, or to Mark Dowd at Managed Disruption, but to help them understand how they can build a personal brand, that will help them secure the role. And that might not be through me, but they see that and they remember it and they appreciate that I've gone kind of beyond the usual experience to support them in finding their next challenge. And I think that's happening more and more now. I think Kersty's right.
Yeah, I mean, my add-on to that would be, trying to add some more value around the candidate process. I think candidates now want that personalised service. They don't want to feel like they're just another number. So some of the things I've been doing with some of my associates with Callum is trying to bring their story to life through video to give them that branding, with an add-on of trying to give them some coaching around social media, because, how do you get 30 or 40 years worth of experience onto a 2-page CV, a 3-page CV? I was saying to someone the other day at an event that I put together that, when I first got into recruitment, into where we are kind of now in the last year or two, people are still sending badged CVs with information on their view on the candidate. When will that change? And I think, especially with interims, the amount of experience that they've got, that there is an opportunity to help them with that branding journey through video.
I think it's a really good idea. One of the things, in an ideal world, there'll no longer be a CV. If it is, it's just the chronology bit to say, right, this is where they've worked and when, and you'll get those case studies, and you'll get the videos, you'll get the blogs, you'll get the podcast, you'll get this complete 360 kind of social profile of somebody, which I think that's where it needs to go. That's where I want it to go, because a CV is just awful.
It's a blunt instrument, isn't it? Really?
In the number of times you see them where they've been gone out to a third party to write their CV, which is sorry everyone, but that is the worst of the worst. Please don't do it. And you just, but you get more. I've seen it before. I've had like 3 CVs lined up of really senior CIOs,
and they're same, right?
and they're absolutely the same. You go, well,
I see it all
that's
the time.
and it's just painful. It's like it's your story. You have to tell your story. You have to be engaged with your own story, and only you can tell it. You can't. To a certain extent, you can't outsource it.
We saw it in the CIO 100 as well, where I didn't even know they existed. There are agencies that will write your awards entries for you.
Oh, wow.
And there would be 3 or 4 entries identical, just almost like control change company name. And it's like, wow, you are missing the point of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. And where do those people place, Mark?
I couldn't possibly reveal. So it sounds like all 3 of you are almost becoming closer to agents in the sort of in the sports and creative industries ways that we know in popular culture. Would that be a good analysis?
I think it's a fair one. I mean, I take a lot of inspiration from what some of the recruitment agencies have done over in the States, how they've pivoted. And there's one agency they're called 10X Management. Now they have totally branded themselves around tech stars in the Silicon Valley area, but basically the people that set up that company used to manage musicians and rock bands, and as that kind of area started to not be as profitable, they've pivoted into managing tech stars. So I think it's a reasonably good analogy,
Ross, are you the Jerry Maguire of the CIO community?
I hope it's not all showing me the money, Mark. But I think when a client engages us to do a search, when I'm doing searches for clients at SA now, I'd see myself an extension of their brand, and I think that's really important. But I think what's changing in the market is the flip side of that is candidates. See people like myself, Kersty, Pat, as an extension of their brands, and it really is a deep understanding of them as a CIO, but them as a person, which allows us, I think, to engage with clients and to help them understand the skill set of the individuals and really sell them. So yeah, absolutely, to some degrees that's true, definitely.
Yeah. And you have some of the really strong candidates will only choose to partner with 1 or 2 that they trust because they're worried about their personal brand and how they transmit it into organisations.
Yeah, but they should be as well, shouldn't they?
I agree.
At this level, the personal brand is partly responsible for you securing your next position. We all know some CIOs out there who perhaps don't have the greatest reputation for delivery, but they do keep landing some pretty big roles, and that's because their personal branding is phenomenal. They have a machine behind them. I think we can probably all learn a little bit from that, but part of our role is to help people see the strengths and weaknesses, I think, as we talked about before.
Do you see yourself as an agent, Kersty?
I think you have to wear both hats, because there will be some of, as Pat said, you'll have some of your candidates who will only partner with you and one other, in which case you have to go and be proactive. It's physically impossible to do that for everybody within your community. But then you are still retained by a client to deliver and find people for them. So you kind of, it's a tightrope. You do have to kind of walk down it very carefully. So, but yeah, I think it's changing. It is changing.
And it sounds like you have to be more creative and closer to that community that you've all stressed throughout this conversation than ever before.
Yes, but the creativity bit is fun. It's exciting. That disruption bit is really good fun, and all of us are sat here because we wanted to do things differently. Otherwise, we'd all still be sat in big corporates doing the same thing and feeling quite comfortable. But we've all put ourselves in situations and put ourselves into organisations that perhaps aren't as well known, but actually where you can be more agile, you can be creative, you can be innovative, and actually it's about not being afraid to fail and get it wrong, but just learn from it and do something else. And as long as our community can see that we're trying to do things differently, and they're bought into that as well, then I think everyone's going to win.
Yeah. Okay. We mentioned a number of times, statistically, an increase in the interim roles. What is driving that? Is it just the current climate? Pat, you...
Yeah, I think it's a number of things really, but I think one of the big drivers is change is getting harder. It's complex out there, and organisations are looking for quick fixes to issues that are arising, which I think is increasing interim opportunities. I think there's another thing at play here, though, which is around something I personally see in my office, regularly, is you get quite a few very strong candidates who just decide that they want a different relationship with their career. They don't want to play that job title, career path up to trying to get the CIO or more of an influential spot on the board. They want to have more of a gig portfolio running through their limited company. So I think you're also finding that there's a talent drain into the executive gig economy, which is also driving a proliferation of opportunities.
Rossi,
there's probably one other thing. I think I've never seen so much consulting fatigue in organisations, which has probably given birth to what BIE are doing at the moment, and absolutely what's given birth to what Sullivan Stanley are doing at the moment. As bigger organisations want to actually use more independence crowded around a structure, so whether it's the product that BIE have taken to the market or the one that I'm taking to the market. So again, that's giving birth to more interim opportunities that traditionally consulting firms were getting.
Ross, are you seeing a lot of CIOs sort of looking at the gig economy thinking, I'd like to be part of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we can all talk about the impact that the kind of political and economical situation has had on the market, and I think that has kind of increased the interim opportunities. But I think the world has changed as well, as we talked about. There's a lot of organisations who have IT functions which perhaps are quite infrastructure-led, they're quite reactive, they're quite commodity-based, and there's a real need, if you're going to compete in today's digital world, to create a more business-aligned, and commercial, strategic IT function. And I think there's a lot of CIOs who are actually being hired to come in, just transform it from old to the new, to put in place the right scale and platform, but then they'll hire a permanent CIO kind of post that to drive the longer term transformation and embed the real change. There's a huge market, I think, now for CIOs that can go in. They don't have to necessarily be as politically savvy. They're in there to make a difference, to turn around that IT function and to leave it in a place where a permanent CIO can come in and then really grow the business from there.
And Kersty, you said this summer your interim business changed gear, it went up a gear. What are you seeing?
No, I think the dynamic and the perception of a permanent person and an interim person actually changed when the wheels fell off in 2008, 2009, where before you were very firmly a permanent candidate or an interim, and I think there was a mindset shift, and people now flick between an interim assignment that might just be something really interesting and then go into a permanent job where it might be a 2-3 year transformation or development. And so there's a lot more fluidity now between roles and what people do. But certainly I think this year the interim market's definitely gone up. We've seen it. The whole reason we have our proposition, and Pat has his, is that there are a lot of people who go through the big four, get to kind of manager level, and then in order to progress have to start going into sales, which they don't want to do. And so there's now a lot of people coming out of that who just want to really focus on delivery and go in big piece of work, whether it's a big ERP transformation, whether it's a cultural transformation, HR, finance, go in, do it, and then move on to the next thing. So it's still that consultancy sort of model, but without the pressure of having to upsell, cross-sell. And I met someone recently who said that they actually felt really uncomfortable trying to be advisory and then trying to force a client to buy services that they genuinely didn't feel that they needed, but were under pressure to make them. So they leave, and we certainly got them in our associate network. I'm sure you've got some crackers in yours as well.
Yeah, it's just that pyramid pressure that people just don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
I think there's another thing at play here as well, where I'm seeing a lot more interims going in to coach and partner with kind of incumbent CIOs and CTOs to help them on that transformational journey, which is reasonably new.
Yeah, and I'm certainly seeing a lot more CIOs, or we talked earlier about the younger CIOs coming and asking for that part, for that coaching, mentoring, someone who's in role, who's got an hour or two a week for a phone conversation. I've really noticed that change.
They seem less afraid, I think, and feel less threatened. They see the real value in having someone who's a seasoned CIO and supporting them. I see that a lot as well. Actually.
There's a couple in my network, and one of them, that's what he does full time, kind of runs 3 or 4 coaching gigs.
I think it also helps the CEOs and the HRDs to feel a lot more comfortable then with making that decision to bring in someone who might be in their first CIO job, knowing that actually they've got that kind of steady hand in the background just in case there's a bit of a wobble. And it allows them to actually bring up the bright young new talent coming through.
Yeah.
So what all three of you are saying is are the traits and the skills of an interim and a perm actually merging a lot more? Are they a lot closer, or are they? Or have I got that wrong? Are they dividing?
Difficult one to answer. I mean, I have to pass it over to Ross, because I'm just concentrate on interim per se, but I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of things there. If you look at some of the traditional traits that an interim would provide to an organisation, would be that coaching part to help people on a journey. So I think that's definitely becoming more of a necessity with any leader that's coming in, is coaching people that they've got around them.
Yeah, I do think it's merging, and I think that's in part because a traditional IT director, 15 years ago, didn't necessarily drive any significant transformation or technology-enabled change. I think most boards, if they're hiring a CIO now, or a modern-day CIO, should be driving transformation. It needs to be driving technology-enabled change. And the reality is that interims, historically, a lot of them were almost single-handedly hired because there was an issue that needed to come in and fix, to change. So I think from that sense, there's a merge around that. I think some of the differences remain, though, that this bit about how politically savvy does an interim have to be against, a permanent CIO. A perm CIO's got to consider the longer term game and the ramifications and the implications that has. But often, I think interims are hired to put out a fire, essentially, or to turn something around, so they don't have to consider it as much. But there's a meeting, I think, of skills across interim and perm, definitely.
I find that as one of the key things around interim, is that we've almost got a licence to tell the truth and hold the mirror up to the execs to say, look guys, this is exactly what's happening. You might not have known it, but you might not like it, but this is what my advice is. And I think that's worth its weight in gold. But to come back to your original question, there's also an argument to say that whether you're an interim CIO or a perm CIO, you're interim by your very nature, that you're going in to drive and deliver change over a reasonably short period, whether it's 18 months or 2.5 years.
Are you seeing the skills?
I think so, no. It's exactly what Ross and Pat have said. It's, an average CIO these days will be in post 2 to 3 years, and they'll be driving an entire cycle of change. And so most won't stay on to go and redo the same kind of cycle over another 3 years, so they'll move on. And it's just, I think it's almost just comes down to the way they're remunerated and whether or not they can hold that mirror up, kind of feeling quite confident that this is what I'm here for. And I think there is the interims can be a little bit more open, honest and brazen, saying actually this is what you've got to do. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine, but that's what you brought me in to do. So I do think there will always be people who just want the security of a permanent job, but there's definitely, the skills are pretty much the same these days. Yeah.
I sat down with an interim CIO recently who just said to me, organisations hire me to deliver. They said, and if you can't, you get found out very quickly, I think, as an interim technology leader. So his role is to go in, turn things around, have those quick wins, and deliver on the remit, and then to move out. And I think, permanent CIOs perhaps get a little bit longer to build and develop relationships and credibility. But I think interim CIOs, technologies, have to be able to do it instantly, and that's an art in itself, I think.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of my clients, like to go that route first, because it's almost the purest form of employment. You're judged on what you do and how you deliver. So any interim that goes into it absolutely understands that. So they've got a delivery track record.
And CIOs must come to you to talk about their own recruitment issues. Are you seeing that the wider recruitment sector is being digitally disrupted, and CIOs are sort of saying, well, why would I go down those traditional agencies? Kersty, what do they say to you guys?
I think there is... Ponder on this one. I'll let Pat go first on this one.
Or anyone.
Look, so I think when you start going down to the lower end of the food chain, sometimes the decision is out outside of the CIO's jurisdiction. They've gone into an organisation and there's an incumbent RPO, or they've got an internal function, so there's always a pressure to go to what's been signed off by HR or the CFO, what's already in play in terms of a process. So actually, just spinning it on its head, what I hear is, I wish I could use you right now because I know that you'd be able to find me exactly who I want, but I can't because I've got to give this period of time to X, Y, and Z. But on the whole, I think there's still a need from all of my CI network for a really good recruiter that gets it right the first time.
Ross?
Yeah, and I agree entirely. I think the conversations that I have, 10, 15 years ago, the CIOs, the technology leader contacts, clients that we had, engage with us directly. I think now they have to have a more collegiate conversation with HR or talent functions. They're not the pure decision maker anymore. And I think that, for me, I see how my role has changed. I'm recognising now, in my practice at SA, that we've got to continue to develop relationships actually with HR internally, because they're becoming key decision makers. And there's this period, as Pat mentioned, that they'll often go out and use traditional internal methods to source those candidates, but I am seeing that those are unsuccessful more often than not, and then the CIO comes back to you and kind of asks to engage with you. But you wonder what's the cost of the business and it taking so long to get to that point. But I think, there's a definite change from that perspective.
You've pondered.
I've pondered. So, sorry. So I think there's the cost versus talent thing. People want to get people in, but they want it at the lowest cost, and so therefore that can fuel some of the organisations that we probably all have had experience of, and can give recruitment quite a bad reputation. And I think that sometimes what the CIO wants, their mandate, whether it's for their -1, -2s, or whether it's for their developers or their infrastructure people, can be, I just want someone bright and talented. But then the internal processes within the organisation don't accommodate that, because it's like, well, there isn't a detailed job spec, which is most of the time full of stuff that can be quite irrelevant, and the processes can be really slow. I know certainly people I've worked with in the past who work in the developer space, if you find someone who is amazing, who is a Hadoop developer or Scala or Python, it's like, you haven't got time to send a CV over to HR, who in 2 days' time might send it across to the development manager, who in a week's time might review it. It's like, there is a person, you have to see them now, and you've got 24-hour window, but I don't think necessarily internal processes can accommodate that. So I don't know how digital would change that. I don't know how you would be able to disrupt that, because actually you want, again, it comes down to that personal thing of, I've got someone amazing, I've got a relationship with my client, I go, you need this person, this is what you're after, and they can turn things around really quickly. So actually, it still comes down to relationships.
You know what I find really interesting as well? I know someone who works for maybe one of the biggest organisations on the planet in terms of number of employees, and they work in the internal talent function there as a recruiter, as a resourcer, and none of them are functional specialists. So on any given day, she might be recruiting, an IT person, a finance person, an HR person the next day. So where does the real understanding, I think, of the role and the community and how to engage with it, I think that's lost a little bit as well. And I think that's really where people like myself and Kersty and Pat are able to build brands and to create or disrupt the recruitment market, because part of that is our deep understanding of technology as well. And it's not just about the community that sits within that, but we're functional specialists. We understand IT, we know where it used to be, we know where it is now, and that means that we can understand the right person to support the business depending on which stage of maturity they're at. Yeah. I think that's crucial.
Yeah, it's just developing that premium value proposition to demarcate yourself away from the race to the bottom. So I'm personally against the race to the bottom and the commoditisation of humans, and I think it's just quite strange. I mean, I get it for blue collar, but for knowledge workers, I just don't think it works.
Yeah. And to the layman listener, and therefore me, that race to the bottom, in the recruitment sector, people talk about body shopping, and what, in layman's terms, what is it, and why do large recruitment firms do it?
Yeah, it's a horrible word, isn't it?
It's not about working out, is
Yeah,
it?
and I don't know. It depends on who you ask, but body shopping for me is just CV shifting and just representing transactional candidates to an organisation through a structure, whether it's a preferred supplier list or whether it's through a recruitment process outsourcer. But some of my clients will use body shopping for warm bodies, warm heads from consulting firms, so it's a difficult one to explain.
Kersty, how do you define body shopping and why do they do it?
For me, it's the complete lack of personal connection between these two bits of paper and what you're looking for. It's the ones where you can get someone sitting there saying, they go through and check on the Control F school of recruitment.
Yeah.
So it's, just go do the keyword searches and, do they have, and who has most keywords, send that CV over.
Yeah.
It might be a 2-second call to check, what their salary is, what their notice period is, and then that's it. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's ugly. There's no value to it, and that's the bit that everybody sees. That's unfortunately a view that a lot of people have of our industry, which is tragic.
It's
really.
a broken value exchange. Body shopping. Candidates don't win, clients don't win.
And to be fair, the consultants in the middle,
Don't really win
it's just
either.
soulless. It's just it must be the most awful job in the world.
Yeah.
Ross, anything that you see on the body shopping side that you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because body shopping personally isn't something that I come across too often, and I think our transformation business at SA actually presents a real opportunity for them, because I think that CIOs, technology leaders are becoming aware of this practice now, and they recognise that some big four consultancies or other suppliers are giving them a graduate with maybe 2 or 3 years experience and charging £2,000 a day for it. And what real value are they getting from that? And once they've cottoned on to that, then there's a real opportunity, because all they've done is go out to the interim market, right? To go out to our community and try and just body shot someone into their brand and into that process. So I think that CIOs are becoming wary of it now, and I think that's supporting us actually as recruiters.
Yeah, it's a good point. It transcends both camps. If you look at an organisation that's thinking of their change portfolio or building a change capability, you go to agencies, the agency world, the interim agency world, or you'll go to consultancies, and body shopping is low value from both camps, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And final point, this is going out early in the new year of 2017. Will 2017 be a good year to change job if you're a senior technology leader? Kersty, ladies first.
Yes, thanks. Yes, I think so. I think if everything that we've been seeing, I think everyone's been holding off in 2016. I can see so many people saying, right, I'm going to be doing this, but it's going to now be 2017. Everyone's, whether it's the post-Trump, post-Brexit, just generally everybody's dying 2016. Let's hope 2017's better. I think a lot of people have been holding off. So I think 2017 is going to be absolutely manic. Certainly our clients have got a lot of work that they're doing. For the last 3 to 6 months, they've been coming in, doing the TOMs, getting their structures, their organisations ready, and it's all going to kick off in 2017. So
TOMs as in target operating models.
Yes, sorry.
That's no problem. Ross, 2017, good year to change job if you're a CIO?
I think 2017 is going to be a good year. Yeah, I think there's continued progress at board level in understanding the value that technology can bring their business. I still think, though, it's got a long way to go. And I think, you and I were talking about this, Mark, weren't we? I want to see, and it seems more of a natural step now, CIOs becoming CEOs. I think as that becomes more commonplace, which I think it will in the coming years, those will be real great years to be a CIO and even to explore your longer term career goals then. But I think 2017 is going to be good because technology, regardless of the ramifications of the political and economic environment, is here to stay, and it's driving business models. And so if you're a technology leader, it's a great place to be.
Pat,
Yeah, I completely concur with both. I think as we get into 2017, you're going to be getting organisations that are going to have to shift from need to change to have to change, and a lot of that change is going to be technology enabled. So I think it's a great time for senior leaders to be looking for their next challenge. I also think, and I've mentioned it a couple of times in this podcast, that the executive gig economy, and it's the reason that I've set up Sullivan Stanley, because it's my personal belief that that's going to explode in the years to come. So I think it's also going to be a good year for leaders out there that are wondering, do I take that step into interim? That there's a myriad of different opportunities for them, not only just in terms of FTSE organisations or large organisations that will need to change, but coaching opportunities to partner with private equity firms and their portfolio, through to actually, working as an augmentation to larger consulting firms. I think there's a myriad of different opportunities that are going to continue to grow in 2017 for that space.
Kersty, Pat, Ross, thank you for your time and your insights. A fantastic discussion on the role of modern search, I think we coined it.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kersty, Pat and Ross, thank you for your time and insights. This Horizon podcast was brought to you by the Horizon Innovation Leadership Summit. The Innovation Leadership Summit will take place in the autumn of 2017. Horizon brings CIO peers and innovation leaders together. To join us, check out horizonbusinessinnovation.com.